One fight that I am looking forward to this year is Ilia Topuria taking on Alexander Volkanovski. Now, the Twitter experts, they'll tell you, oh, Volk's got this in the bag. 100% Volk's got this in the bag. But you see, for me, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah.
I think that Ilia Topuria is the toughest opponent, with all due respect, right? One of the featherweight goats. I think Ilia Topuria is the toughest opponent Volkanovski has probably faced, not named Islam Makhachev. I want to know what your thoughts are on that fight. And maybe you can kind of give me your opinion on what makes Ilia special and what makes Volkanovski special and what makes this fight special.
You set it up beautifully. It really is a special fight. And with respect to Max Holloway and Jose Aldo and all the men that Alexander Volkanovski has left in his wake, largely I would agree with you when you combine all of these circumstances surrounding this fight. It stands to reason that this could be his toughest title defense. And even before the fight on paper, a lot of people would agree with you, Malik, and suggest as much. Ilia Topuria is undefeated, and he has been working, even though he has this massive following, well over, I think, 2 million followers on Instagram. But largely, he's been working in silence. And when I sat down with him at our seasonal press conference last December, I talked to him about his unheralded coaches. And he sort of smirked and he said, eventually, I become world champion. Everybody's going to get their shine. But this man has every skill befitting a UFC champion. And I think he likes the fact that people don't necessarily know a ton about him. Certainly there's some UFC footage on paper, right? I think he's 6-0 in the UFC, but I think he likes the fact that he has been working in silence. On the other side, of course, you have the decorated UFC featherweight champion. A lot of people believe Alexander Volkanovski is number 1 or number 2 as far as pound for pound status in the sport right now. But he's just a worker, man, you know, and hard work leads the dance for basically every parenting conversation I have. And certainly there's a lot of athleticism, but I think for Volk, it really begins with the discipline and the work ethic and the willingness to go to dark places constantly in training that maybe a lot of other athletes aren't willing to go to. But now, as you fast forward several title defenses in, as he continues to chase records, he's far more layered and nuanced as a striker. I mean, there's so many different feints and stance switches all the time. I would think he'd be a real headache to prepare for, despite the fact that there's a lot of film and a lot of 25-minute fights on the guy. But it's a great fight, man, and it's happening a few days after the Super Bowl. And I'm fond of saying, like, there's 15 Super Bowls a year. There's the one that the NFL does, and then there's the 14 that we do. It's hard to make sort of an NBA comparison because the finals are a best 4 out of 7, right?
Right.
But Alexander Volkanovski in defense against Ilia Topuria at UFC 298. Maybe it sounds hyperbolic because the promotion cuts my paycheck, but bro, mixed martial arts fans, to a man, to a woman, are getting a Super Bowl like a few days after the NFL
100%.
does there. Like, it's one of the best fights of the year, and I appreciate that you led with that one, buddy.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to the fight. Literally, as a fight and fan enthusiast, I literally get jitters thinking about these two squaring off. So I've been following Ilia for quite some time. And, you know, I think a big test for him was when he took on Bryce Mitchell. And I remember everyone saying, oh, Bryce Mitchell, up and coming thug, nasty's a problem he's going to do. And just to see the, you know, obviously Bryce was dealing with some stuff going into that fight, but seeing the way in which he dismantled him and won that fight, I said, wow, I think we have a real player. And then you look at what he was able to do against Josh Emmett, a guy that is an absolute dog in the featherweight division. And we saw what he just did. He left Bryce Mitchell in his wake in a fight that I think a lot of people were writing him off and writing his obituary. And he went out there and he shut the lights off, and he did it in such dramatic fashion. So I think that when you look at it, Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski does not get much better than that. I do say, though, John, I'm a little bit concerned. And what I'm concerned with is, is Volk coming back too soon? That's the one question that I am asking myself a little bit like that, because you want to make sure that you're getting the best Alexander Volkanovski. And of course, these guys are apex athletes, A-plus athletes. So only they know themselves quite like themselves. So I'm sure Volkanovski wouldn't be stepping into this fight with Topuria if he wasn't ready. But I guess the other flip, the flip side of the coin for me, I'm like, oh, is this going to be too much too soon?
Fair question, right? initially these guys were going to fight in Toronto before Volkanovski had to sort of step up for the promotion there against Islam Makhachev. But I think part of the reason why people believe on paper this is his toughest title defense is because of that very circumstance, coming off a head kick knockout loss. I don't really worry too much about it. I will suggest to you one thing I love about Ilia Topuria is that he's not afraid to sit down with me, as he did in December, and suggest what you're actually suggesting. Most fighters from a competitive standpoint would not let that into the stratosphere and say, I don't like the fact that, or say, I like fighting him now, right? Because he's coming off of that knockout loss against Islam Makhachev. Like, even if Ilia Topuria and his team thought it was a good time to be fighting Volkanovski because of that very factor,
right,
they wouldn't sort of send that message out there to the masses, right? Ilia Topuria and his team are so confident that they're not afraid to say that. They feel like on any given Saturday night, they are the better man, they are the better athlete. But you're not wrong to suggest that that maybe some people, maybe even his strength and conditioning nutritionist body guys, would have liked him to wait till March or April. But man, far be it from me to doubt anything when it comes to the mental, physical, emotional athlete that is Alexander Volkanovski. I expect an absolute war, and I don't think his chin, having not recovered, is going to be any sort of X factor in the fight.